Namaskar, friends, and welcome to the press briefing on today's meeting of the Honorable Finance Minister with Chief Ministers and States Finance Ministers. I welcome Honorable Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharamanji, Honorable Minister of State for Finance, Dr. Bhagwat Kishan Rao Kararji, Finance Secretary, Dr. T.V. Somanathan, Secretary Economic Affairs, Shri Ajit Seth. Over to Honorable Finance Minister for the briefing. After the briefing, we'll take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks to each one of you all who've been waiting for all the while. Uh, it did take considerable time, but I'm very grateful to all the chief ministers, the deputy chief ministers, the lieutenant governor, and also the finance ministers. Some finance ministers were also represented by um, other ministers holding different portfolios, but I'm grateful to all the states who uh, participated and gave their views. There is a very detailed press release which is being put out. I think nearly 19 states chief ministers had participated. No, sorry, 15 chief ministers participated, 15, not 19. Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir, Deputy Chief Minister of 3 states, and ministers, finance ministers of the rest of them. I've listed it out in the press release, so you'll get the names. The context of the meeting was that after the second wave, uh, we are seeing a robust growth. However, uh, it's also a time where we are looking at ways in which we need to sustain the growth, take it as close as possible to a double digit growth, and for which both the center and the states will have to work together. So, this meeting was essentially to seek states and their ideas on how they want this to be taken further, because in most of the issues related to investment, development, and also for manufacturing and taking business activities, it is the states who are doing it from the forefront. The support from the center is always there, but we also wanted to make sure that states and their understanding of how they would want to go forward should be heard, and that is the reason this meeting was called. And therefore, I must put it up front that we've had very um, key ideas coming from states. There were also generic requests which were posed. I'm not going through each of the ideas. We've listed it out for you, bullet points of each of the suggestions which have come. Like one of the examples that I like to take is also the way in which some of the states have uh, given approvals and for projects. uh, they were looking for better dispute resolution mechanisms post the award of contracts, enhancing road connectivity. Some of the Northeast states came up with specific suggestions of immediate job creation for their states, and state specific international trade policies for the Northeast. So I've, I've listed it out. The need for a policy for offshore wind energy generation was highlighted by some states. So it is a very useful session where clearly the way in which we want to move forward is to ensure that the understanding that states have about their way of wanting to move forward post a pandemic, with the people of India showing greater, aspiration to want to come out of the pandemic and clearly push towards better and speedier growth. It was just a timely meeting which we've had with the states, and the detailed notes have been taken of the oral speaking in content of the ministers, but of course we've requested each one of them to send their written note as well. One of the things which I'll make my opening intervention very brief. One of the things which states have been talking about is the way in which this year we have uh, front loaded many of the dues which have to go to the states. That has been recognized, and also there was at least a few of them kept saying that the capital expenditure money that was given to them, almost like a grant, but for the 50 years which they can use interest free, and for them to return 50 years later, has been well received. Many of the states very openly said that they would want the scheme to be continued because the emphasis is on capital expenditure. Unless states and center put the money for infrastructure building, the ripple effects for promoting better and speedier growth uh, will be not as desirable as we wish to have it. And therefore, that expenditure is absolutely necessary. And many of them have been stating that. You are aware that the GST compensation, which was agreed upon for this entire year, has already been given, um, uh, even by early November. Similarly, today some of the CMs requested that for increasing the state's capital expenditure, it would really be helpful for them to get a part of the tax devolution for the current financial year also. uh, in a sense, if it can be front loaded, it will be helpful. There and then, of course, I've directed the finance secretary, who's also taking care of the expenditure, to do this immediately so that this being a very exceptional year, states will not be short of money in their hands when we all of us are pushing forward with the infrastructure expenditure to be taken up by them. So I have suggested to the finance secretary that in this month, to be specific, on 22nd November, normally devolution money goes on the 20th. 20th and 21st, I understand, is a weekend, and therefore on the 22nd, instead of the normal monthly installment of devolution amount, which is a total of 47,541 crores, I've asked Finance Secretary to release another 47,541 crore. So a total of 95,082 crores will be given to the states on November 22nd, which means other than the amount due in November of devolution, one more installment it will be given together on 22nd November. So with that, the desire of the states to have some more money in their hands so that they can easily consider uh, spending it for infrastructure creation would help. Just in case you want any numbers about how much will be given to each of the states during this period, we can share the table with you, and you will get to know about the amounts. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll now take some questions. 1 to 5. Shishir.
Good evening, ma'am. Shishir here from Hindu Business Line. My question is that did the states ask for relaxation in FRBM so that since they are pushing for more expenditure, so are they also looking for, and what is your stand on that?
Some of the states did ask for relaxation, for further relaxation of FRBM, because I think in one of our press releases we have already said, and even today we have mentioned it in the press release, that several states had fulfilled the increased FR borrowing, which was given to them about a percentage without any condition and 1% with conditions. And many states have fulfilled the conditions, and therefore, every now and then we get to know where they are, and we uh, do the necessary arrangements for it. Over and above that, at least two states wanted specifically an increase because they felt that their situation being what it is, they would want to have that flexibility given to them unconditionally. If I can recall, one was Madhya Pradesh, the other one was Sikkim.
Number 11.
Ma'am, I just wanted to understand the devolution, this Siddharthya. Ma'am, just wanted to understand the devolution part. How much would have been transferred so far? And, what is the modalities that have been worked out now? And also, just another this thing, are there, so ma'am, was higher capex, higher spend one of the key issues for the today's deliberations?
Second point, I'll ask Finance Secretary to give you the details of the devolution. Today's meeting was more to understand the state's understanding of where they are, what is the kind of perspective they have. All of them do appreciate that spending on infrastructure is absolutely well taken, and that is why you saw me telling you earlier that some states preferred that 50-year interest-free loan so that they can take upon themselves some of the projects, and therefore that money comes of handy. So today's meeting was to understand from the states what their perspective is, two, where do they have their requirements in terms of infrastructure spending, how far have they achieved what was announced earlier, and what is it that they expect to do in the forthcoming months, with a larger interest of growing well, and looking at a good, uh, you know, number of GDP growth. So that was the broader agenda of the meeting. On the devolution, of course, so.
The states are entitled to a particular percentage of central taxes. The aggregate is 41%.